Okay, so let's dive into this. Think about this for a second. What if we're not alone? But maybe more than that, what if we're being watched?
Yeah, it's a fascinating, maybe slightly unsettling thought.
Right. And this source material we're digging into today, it's called the record file. And it goes right there. It actually describes not one, but three different races it claims are observing Earth.
Three distinct groups. That's quite specific.
It is. So our mission here really is to try and pull out what this file says about each one. What makes them tick, their motivations, how they supposedly operate.
Trying to understand their unique perspectives on, well, on us.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how the source presents them. It's not just different species. It's like fundamentally different ways of watching or interacting with humanity.
It starts with the first one, doesn't it? The file calls it La Primera Raza.
Yeah, the first race. And it puts this one firmly in the spiritual category.
Spiritual, right.
Yeah.
The file claims this race gave warnings based on its own truth.
But the source suggests these warnings were, well, symbolic, weren't they? Lacking any real practical advice.
That seems to be the idea. The file uses that phrase, living from the symbol but not the sacrifice, kind of abstract.
Very. And according to the text, this is the one that warned, but then apparently left, cursing. Maybe when it felt it lost influence over humanity.
That's what the text suggests. It intervened from what the source calls the demine, but maybe using methods that the source sees as manipulative. Things like faith, myth, maybe even punishment or guilt.
And it's associated with certain colors, too. Radiant white or light gold.
Yes, and supposedly originating from nearby galaxies. That's the picture the file paints for the first one.
Okay, so that's one type. Spiritual, symbolic, maybe a bit manipulative, and now absent according to this source. But then the file just shifts gears completely for the second race. Almost the opposite.
A total contrast. The file uses words like silenciosa, structural, fria, justa. So, silent, structural, cold, just. This is the technological observer.
Ah, right. Pure logic, sounds like.
Yeah.
Emotionally detached.
Completely, based on the description. It doesn't ask for faith, like the first one maybe did. The file says it demands coherence. Its methods are things like binary card geometry. It operates through an indirect presence.
So less about symbols and belief, much more about logic, systems, data.
Precisely. The source says it observes, and this is key, it calibrates.
Calibrates. What does that mean in this context?
Well, it seems to mean it's constantly measuring, adjusting its understanding based on the data it collects about us. The text suggests it might eventually act, but only if some critical balance is upset.
And there's a darker side mentioned.
Yeah, the file notes it can be cruel by omission because it's cold logic, its sense of justice, it just doesn't factor in pain or consequences the way humans might. Think dark blue or mineral black colors for this one, also from nearby galaxies, according to the file.
Cruel by omission.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a chilling phrase from the file. Okay, and then there's the third race. This one sounds the most passive. Is that right?
That's a good way to put it. The file says, no advierte, no codifica, se deja ver. It doesn't warn, it doesn't encode, it just lets itself be seen.
So not spiritual warnings, not logical calibration, just presence.
Exactly. It's described as having a biological pattern. Almost emotional, the file suggests, but not in a human way. The source seems to view it as a pure witness, like a living network, maybe even integrated with us somehow.
A witness. Doesn't send messages, doesn't judge. Just observes what happens when the other two forces, the spiritual and the technological, interact or maybe fail.
That seems to be the role described. And it has a humanoid face, the file says, but pointedly, no specific expression.
And it makes a request. Something about being remembered.
Yes. It pide ser recordado y no temido ni obedecido. It asks to be remembered but not feared or obeyed like the first one might want, or followed logically like the second.
Just remembered.
Its colors are described as organic gray, kind of between coal and mist. And again, nearby galaxies, its dark side, if you can call it that, isn't really malicious, but maybe just unsettling in its complete neutrality. It can seem absent because it simply is, but its attention is apparently absolute. The file even claims its perspective is, we are here, and we always were.
Okay, wow. So based purely on this record file, we've got these three incredibly different ways of watching humanity laid out.
Yeah. The symbolic, maybe manipulative spiritual type that left.
The silent, logical, calibrating, technological observer.
And the passive biological witness that just bears witness.
The source definitely presents them as fundamentally distinct takes on observing us.
Which really leaves us and you listening with a pretty big thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Based on this file, what does it actually mean to be observed by such different entities, each with its own nature, its own apparent goals?
And what might their long watch, described so differently here, imply about us? Humanity seen through these, well, very distinct, very non-human lenses. Something to think about.